Okay, good morning. Welcome everybody to this webinar on the 19th of May. My name is Marcel Duijs. I'm president of IACBAM. I'm here with Jan-Joost ten Brinker and Andy. Andy, you are our guest today. I just wanted to ask if you would quickly introduce yourself to the audience.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Andy Procter. I'm a consultant based in the UK that's been working with CBAM and working with the IACBAM.
Thank you. And Jan-Joost?
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Jan-Joost ten Brinker, Vice President of the International Association, and primarily responsible for, let's say, the training part of the association, standard creation.
Thank you, Jay. Welcome. Well, this slide I actually should have just pressed a few seconds ago. We now go to the agenda. Just introduce quickly the speakers. I will also introduce IACBAM because not everybody in the call is aware of IACBAM. Then we will dive into the new standard 3006-2026, and we will end with a Q&A about the standards. Just first about IACBAM. We promote, develop, and maintain CBAM stakeholder certification, ensuring that the companies along the CBAM supply chain are ready to navigate this new legislation. We're on one hand a knowledge hub. For example, if you go to the website, you can find all the updates on CBAM, not just from EU CBAM, also UK CBAM, Turkey CBAM, and the other CBAMs which are coming. We do industry talks and certification. I actually put a few examples together. For example, we will have the Global CBAM Summit on the 28th of May in Prague, which unfortunately was so fully booked after a few weeks already. If we do this next time, we will make sure we have a larger venue. Maria, unfortunately, has to be in Ireland, but Vicente Hurtado Roa will take her place and present on behalf of DG Taxit, and he will also talk about carbon price paid, which is the hot topic at the moment in CBAM. We do monthly webinar series. The past 3 webinar series were with Holly Piggott, with Nick Ogilvie from Carbon Chain, and with John from MEPS. We participate in research and publications and invite also people from university to cooperate with the International Association. We participate in events. This is JJ with, if I'm correct, the president of FIATA. But most important is that we deal with standards and certifications. That's on one hand a very serious thing, but on the other hand, it's also a great way to connect. This is just some pictures of the past year of IACBAM. So if you certify yourself, you can become an associate member, which has many benefits. For example, you can participate for free in webinar series. You can have discounts at the events of IACBAM and receive in your CBAM portal the documents which IACBAM publishes. I would like to dive into the certification and explain which standards we have. On one hand, 3001 for software platforms, 3002 mostly focus on declarants, but also actually large multinationals take 3002. It actually means that within your organization you have CBAM in line with the standards, and you make sure that you do the right thing to tackle CBAM. There's 3003 and 3005. 3003 is a train-the-trainer for the declarants and for professionals, and 3005 is train-the-trainer for in-house compliance managers and actually also consultants on the factory side. 3004 is for professionals. It's actually a training which is now currently provided by many trainers, I think around 70 around the world. And it's actually just for professionals to make sure that they know what to do with CBAM in line with the standards of IACBAM and then can certify against them. Why we are here today for this one, 3006, and the reason is actually the following. We all know there are importers and suppliers, right? And in the past months, everybody, like we got a lot of mails as IACBAM with questions like, can you please introduce us to a verifier? However, before you can get your data verified, you need to make sure that your data is in line. And last week I spoke with one of the leading verifiers from the EU, and they said that around 80% of the data, what they get, 80% of the companies are simply not ready. They have to reject because they will know already that they will fail verification. That means that the role of the consultant or the in-house compliance team of a factory is actually very, very, very important. And we also know that there are many consultants, experts in the field that present themselves as CBAM expert, actually maybe has never seen a factory from the inside. That's why 3006 is so important because, and Andy will show that today, if you pass 3006, which is not that easy to pass, and he will explain that there's a lot of learning modules, there are cases, there's an exam, etc. But if you pass that one, I mean, you can't guarantee, but you know, I bet that that consultant really knows what to do to get your data ready to be verified. And that's why, as mentioned, we're going to focus today on 3006. Andy is in 3005, train the trainer. He delivers this training to participants. And if you're interested in taking part of 3006, you can reach out to the association or to Andy after this presentation. Andy, as oh yeah, by the way, this is interesting. Maybe if you're interested in the brochure of 3006, you can scan this QR code and download the brochure with all the information. So you can send it, for example, to your colleagues or people in the organization which explains more about the 3006 standard. For now, London's calling. I'm not sure if you're exactly in London, but it's a bit in line with the Song Festival. And please take us through the 3006 standards.
Okay, so good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Andy Procter, one of the IACBAM trainers, and in this short webinar, we'll be discussing 3006, a new competence standard that's been developed for multiple CBAM stakeholders who are developing and assessing MRV systems. Over the past 20 minutes or so, I'll set out 3 things: why this standard's needed, what it covers, and how the certification works in practice. I will keep things tight, but there should be some time for questions at the end. So, as we all know, the EU's CBAM definitive period went live in January. And as we're aware, that means that importers in the EU are now responsible for declaring embedded carbon in CBAM goods and surrendering certificates against those emissions next year in 2027. We are frankly in unknown territory. Declarants are trying to assess their exposure, unsure of the EUA price and whether they will be able to use actual values or have to rely on default values. Installations outside the EU are in varying states of readiness, with many requiring support on CBAM methodology and being asked difficult questions from their supply chain. As yet, we do not have any accredited verifiers, but we do know that a 5% materiality threshold verification will be a high bar with an emphasis on accurate and credible monitoring plans. However, the financial exposure sits squarely with the importer. So every weak data point, every poorly justified assumption, every missing audit trail translates into a higher cert cost. Some importers have modeled costs and looked at potential exposure and thought, I'll stick to default values. Ultimately, this is a commercial decision and a perfectly reasonable one. However, as a CBAM evolves and carbon prices rise and free allocations diminish, those costs will grow and as their competitiveness diminishes. 3006 is IACBAM's response, a published competence standards with structured certification program built so that declarants, installations and consultants all share credible baseline for the people doing this work. 4 reasons why this standard needed to exist, and it needs to exist now. First, the regulation is young and it's still being shaped. Implementation acts continue to land as of last week with the Article 9 carbon pricing. A competent practitioner has to be able to work directly from primary text, not second-hand summaries. Second, the financial consequences are direct and measurable. Stakeholders must be confident in the emissions reported and confident that systems are in place to deliver verifiable data. Actual emissions data will become commercially advantageous. Third, there is a genuine assurance gap. Until now, there's been no benchmark for people building, running and auditing MRV systems. 3006 builds that gap with a formal certification program. And fourth, it is sector-wide and globally relevant. It covers all CBAM sectors and deliveries online. So candidate base is global, just as the effects of CBAM. So who is it for? 3006 is designed to serve 6 distinct groups in the CBAM ecosystem. Each gets something different from it. 1, independent consultants gain a recognised competence badge in a market where no one yet has a long track record. 2, in-house compliance teams in non-EU installations gaining support and a framework to develop their own in-house MRV systems. 3, EU declarants and importers get supplier-side assurance, which reduces their risks, confident that suppliers will be verification ready. 4, accredited verifiers get clients that are verification ready. 5, training and CPD providers get external reference standard to align their courses to. And finally, 6, trade bodies and association get a credible, externally governed baseline they can point their members towards. I'll take each of those in a bit more depth in the next 3 slides. So starting with the practitioner groups, independent consultants, consulting firms advise installation declarants on MRV system design, data flows, CEFA calculations, and verification readiness. For them, 3006 offers a recognised competence badge. In a young market, a badge is a clear commercial differentiator. It gives stakeholders reassurance. Whether it is an installation seeking advice or a declarant requesting a second-party audit of their supplier, some installations have in-house compliance teams that will currently be responsible for CBAM compliance. Frighteningly, I've had conversations with factories in Asia that are only just aware of CBAM, even though they export CBAM products into the EU. For them, 3006 provides a defined framework for understanding CBAM and developing their own in-house monitoring plans, enabling them to become CBAM robust. Next 2 parties are either side of the verification process. We have EU declarants and importers carrying the responsibility for the CBAM declaration, certificate surrender and cost. They rely heavily on data from third country suppliers, which they do not directly control. For them, 3006 means confidence that their supply chain is supported by certified, accountable practitioners with reduced verification risk and fewer year-end surprises. Using 3006, declarants could upskill their procurement teams to ensure that they understand the effects of CBAM on their purchases, keeping their supply chain in check by ensuring they have credible systems in place and giving them the tools to conduct their own supplier CBAM readiness audits. Although yet there are no official accredited verifiers, verifiers will be formally delivering verification. For them, 3006 means installations will arrive verification ready with traceable evidence, clear monitoring plans, complete internal audit trails, less rework, shorter engagements, better outcomes for the client. Verification bodies in third countries that will be unfamiliar with CBAM may require some upskilling of their teams. 3006 gives a solid framework from which they can work on. And finally, training and CPD providers delivering continual professional development across CBAM, whether it be MRV, GHG, accounting, audit or related disciplines. For them, 3006 provides an external standard their courses can align to. Qualifying CPD activities feed into the annual IACBAM CPD catalogue. And regulators, trade associations, policy stakeholders oversee their representative industry sectors with CBAM exposure. They increasingly ask who their members should turn to for support. 3006 gives them a published, externally governed baseline they can confidently point people towards. It reduces fragmentation across countries and supports a level playing field. The standard is built around 8 competency domains. Each domain sets out what the practitioner must know and what they must be able to do. Domains 1 and 2 cover the regulatory side, CBAM MRV rules, interpretation, MRV system design, monitoring plans and documentation control. Domains 3 and 4 cover the numbers and the evidence, quantification and calculation, data governance and audit trails, understanding methodologies like CEFA and the importance of data quality. Domains 5 and 6 cover audit work and sectoral knowledge, audit for verification readiness, and installation operations literacy. And domains 7 and 8 cover the human side of the work, stakeholder engagement and professional practice. This is a professional standard and standards must be high. Together, these 8 domains are the structural backbone of the standard, the examination and the curriculum. Everything that we look at maps back to them. Sitting under the 8 domains are 13 learning outcomes from the training curriculum, numbered LO1 to LO13. These are specific, accessible things candidates have to demonstrate. There are 2 progressive levels and 3006, foundations to practitioner level. Some learning outcomes apply to both levels. Others are practitioner only, reflecting on the high demands for independent judgment at that level. A full mapping is on the slide for reference. The point to take away is simple. Every learning outcome is anchored in one of the 8 domains. Every domain is examined, and that examination cannot avoid any of them. As mentioned, there are 2 progressive competency levels. A foundational level is calibrated for supported supervised role. A foundation holder supports a practitioner on client work. They carry out bounded tasks under review. The pathway is 7 self-study modules plus 1 facilitated live day, ending in an open book examination. Practitioner level is for independent delivery. A practitioner takes assignments to clients on their own. They exercise professional judgment on complex matters. They own claims and materiality conclusions, take responsibility for the engagement. The pathway adds 6 further self-study modules and a full live day with a high proportion of scenario questions in the examination. The foundation pathway is around 16 hours of self-study, followed by 1 facilitated online live day and an open book examination. 7 self-study modules build the knowledge base. The live day applies it across 5 sessions, all threaded through a single case study. The whole pathway is calibrated for the supported, supervised role most candidates will hold in their working life. The 7 foundation modules are as follows. F1, CBAM regulatory framework, scope, obligations, deadlines. F2, MRV system design fundamentals, including monitoring plan, process mapping, controls, document management. F3 is data governance principles, audit trail completeness, traceability, and the risks that come with spreadsheets. F4 is sector reading packs, covers all of the CBAM sectors, and works through the basic processes, emission sources, and measurement approaches relevant to it. F5, stakeholder engagement, including structured interviewing, documenting responses and objective evidence. F6, professional practice, including ethics, independence, conflicts of interest. This module contains critical fail elements. And F7, quantification and calculation fundamentals, emissions calculation, allocation across products, default values, and data quality. Each module includes quizzes to test candidates' understanding of the material and some reflection questions to assist the facilitator. All 7 must be completed before the candidate attends the live day. So the foundation live day runs as 5 sessions, all anchored in a single case study, Aras Seklik at Integrated Steelworks in Turkey. The case study is deliberately rich: shared infrastructure, a routine blast furnace, gas to captive power plant, a precursor supply chain and an external supplier, and transitional period MMD with monitoring gaps that have to be reconciled before definitive regime. Session opens with a knowledge check, and then session 1 applies regulatory framework. Session 2, MRV system mapping workshop. Session 3, calculation fundamentals. Session 4, practices stakeholder engagement. And finally, session 5 tackles ethics scenarios before briefing, before the examination. The practitioner pathway is for those that have passed the foundation examination. Candidates must hold a current foundation certificate before they can enrol in the practitioner level. The pathway adds around 12 hours of self-study across 6 modules and a fully facilitated live day and a practitioner examination. The live day is anchored in 2 case studies: Volokov for monitoring plan design and Sigma for the calculation, audits and ethics sessions. The emphasis throughout is judgment and application. So running through the practitioner modules, they are as follows. P1, advanced regulatory mechanisms. So Article 9, price carbon credits, CBAM factors, free allocations, surrender certificates. P2, monitoring plan design, building a monitoring plan, materiality controls, precursor evidence, and the unreasonable cost test. Module 3, CEFA calculation methodology, free allocation, actual and default values, data. P4, Article 9 document chains, the evidence chain supporting price carbon credits, from installation records to declarant deductions. P5, verification readiness audit, planning and running an audit to prepare an installation for accredited verification, i.e. samplings, findings, materiality. And P6, advanced professional practice, so ethics under pressure, declarant engagements and conservativeness as a professional obligation. So there's 2 practitioner case studies, each for different teaching purposes. Together with the foundation level, that gives 3 realistic installations across a full pathway. So case study 1, Steelworks Volokov in Serbia, anchors a monitoring plan design workshop. It's an integrated plant, mini mill, captive generation with a PPA power agreement, and it gets pig iron from an EU sister company and a small carbon capture plant. So Volokov is quite complex, and it's how to structure a monitoring plan that's proportionate, defensible and verification ready. Steelworks Sigma is the calculation and audit and ethics sessions. Sigma reports emissions, carries on Article 9 credit claims, and comes with prepared evidence sets that have built-in gaps. Sigma test calculations, audit findings, and materiality conclusions. All case studies are based on the steel and iron sector. Not only is this sector the largest CBAM import, but it's arguably the most complex, which makes them ideal for candidates. The practitioner live day is a full day, structured around those 2 case studies and designed for judgment and application under challenge. After the opening and knowledge check, session 1 runs through regulatory mechanisms on the Sigma case, certificate surrender formula, CEFA examples, Article 9 credit calculation, currency conversion, and the boundary between consulting and legal advice. Session 2 is a Volokov monitoring plan design workshop, including production processes, source stream controls, and defending the design. Session 3 returns to Sigma for CEFA and audit practice. formulating findings, applying materiality at the 5% threshold. And session 4 is the ethics session, again using Sigma. 4 scenarios drawn from this engagement. The day closes with a briefing on the practitioner examination. So 3006 sits on a formal 3-year cycle governed by IACBAM. The sequence is straightforward. Candidates enroll at foundation level or the full pathway. They complete self-study at their own pace. They attend the live day online. They sit an open book examination with critical fail rules in force. On passing, they hold a 3006 certificate valid for 3 years. CPD is expected, and it's set at 15 hours per year, at which 5 must be CBAM specific content. Renewal at the 3-year point is subject to CPD compliance. There is no automatic renewal. So IACBAM is a published competence standard, the only CBAM competence standard. It exists so that CBAM MRV work is demonstrably capable of doing it. Foundation, then practitioner, delivered online, globally available, governed by IACBAM. So thanks for your time. I'll pass you back to Marcel and we'll open the floor for questions.
Thank you very much, Andy. That was very good. And this is exactly why IACBAM is here. I believe that this is a part where a lot of companies struggle with, and that's where we can help. We are not lobbying on CBAM. We just take CBAM how it is, both from the UK, from the EU, but then we try to help the CBAM community and try to make this the system work. In the past, that was especially with providing knowledge, but now we really start to see that there is work to be done in the factory and to make sure that there are enough people that can prove that they know how to tackle CBAM.